Okay, well, so yesterday evening there was a vice presidential debate between Vance and Walz. Is that how you pronounce it? Walz?
I think Tim
Waltz.
Walz.
Waltz.
Timmy.
Timmy.
Oh, Timmy boy. What do you call him? What's the thing?
Tim Walz. It's like
the tampon
you want
thing.
to
Oh, yeah.
build the wall.
Tampon.
Only learnt of that this morning.
I only learnt of that.
Yes, he campaigned for having tampons in boys' bathrooms in several schools.
That's insane.
So
Yes,
it's
and
Tampon Tim.
A lot of
Tampon
people call
Tim.
him Tampon Tim.
I like the little names that sort of catch on because of policy, silly policies like that.
Yeah, it's funny how they try and paint Vance as a weirdo. That's weird, Tim. Governor Waltz, that's weird, bro.
Yeah.
All right, we have to shield quite near the beginning of every segment. Islander magazine. Buy it, it's great. It's full of great articles. Issue 2. What have we got in there? Cole Benjamin, Dr. Nima Parvini, Morgoth, the Morgoth, always brilliant. Dave Green, was it the distributist, isn't it?
I think
Dave
so,
Green, yeah. And Stefan Molyneux, the Stefan Molyneux, as well as others. Big Josh Firm of Lotus Eaters fame. It's got a poem in there, I understand. So, no, it's good. Check it out. Do buy it. Islander.
And we also
Buy
have
it.
the merch. Yep.
Oh, and merch.
Yeah.
A whole shed load of wicked merch.
Yes.
I like the metal one, Islander metal shirt that I saw.
We have mugs and T-shirts. Yeah, check them out.
Sort of stuff. It keeps us going. And thanks to our subscribers. Thanks to anyone that buys any of this stuff. Because, contrary to some rumours, we're not funded by Moscow or Jerusalem. So we do actually really need and are very grateful for your money and contributions and any sort of merch or magazines you do buy or any sort of subscriptions you cough up for. Thank you very, very much. We actually can't stress that enough. I know whenever you go on places and they say that, you're just like, yeah. But it's honestly really, really true. I mean, it's just a fact. So anyway, on to Vance v. Walz. So I watched it, so you don't have to. My takeaway is just don't bother. It's relatively boring. There was no like massive head-to-head heated moment where you're like, oh, drama. Oh, there's no real drama.
I heard it was very polite.
Relatively.
Relatively.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't watch all of it. I saw only clips on Twitter because that's kind of what you
I
do.
watched it all on ×2 speed. I couldn't be bothered with actually.
Just take it all in.
I haven't watched all of it, but I kind of liked it. For me, it was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
What way? Why'd you say
In that it wasn't just full of ad hominem attacks.
Oh, right, yeah, they were
They're
quite
funny.
pleasant to each other.
Yeah, I mean, ad hominem attacks, they're funny.
Yeah.
And they are the bread and circus in a bit. But I think that was a breath of fresh air. I really liked J.D. Vance's performance.
Yeah, I think he did really well.
Yeah.
No, he did really well. He came across as personable, likeable, even charismatic. Can I go that far? But he was all right. I think he did really well because I've seen him speak before, but I've never really seen Walz speak before. I've seen a few tiny little clips on Twitter, just a few second clips here and there. So I've never seen him talk for any extended period of time. So I was prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, his politics are insane. He's a senior Democrat, but as a person, Tampon Tim, he's obviously out of his gourd. But I thought, just as a person, as a man, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. And to be fair to him, he can actually speak. You know, like Joe Biden can't really speak. Kamala Harris is just an endless word salad of nonsense and just a pure cringe machine. Right? At least this guy could actually talk normally, string together normal sentences with a relatively normal cadence. And there was a bit of word salad, but it wasn't too egregious. You know, like even people like Angela Rayner, they sort of can't speak properly, right?
Or coherent.
Or coherently, yeah. It's there's loads of senior politicians in all sorts of countries that, like, your job is supposed to be as an orator. You're supposed to speak for a living. You're supposed to be a professional speaker, and you can't really do it. Well, at least give him that. At least, he's like
because Kamala Harris isn't particularly spontaneous. She's a good speaker, especially they ask us stuff that she doesn't expect. She doesn't seem to be good with words.
She has said some insane stuff, like everyone takes the mick out of it online, the random sort of diatribes that she goes on. I can't even think of them because they're so wacky, but like that thing that was once there and then tomorrow, and you know, like that kind of weird diatribe.
I'll tell you who was bad for that, quite bad for that. Not as bad as her, but George Bush Jr., if anyone remembers, anyone's old enough to remember George Bush Jr., he would do a thing where it was semi-coherent. It was sort of semi-coherent and like malapropisms, you know, trying to say a particular famous phrase, turn a phrase, and getting it wrong. AOC does that.
Oh yeah.
Like AOC
dodge a shoe though.
Hey, sorry, what?
George Bush Jr. He could dodge shoes.
Oh yeah, that was a great dodge. Do you remember that? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Stanley Rocky threw a shot at him.
Yeah.
He just slipped the shoulder. It was a really good little little shimmy. Yeah.
He was in the room and zoned.
2 shoes, in fact, wasn't it?
It was 2. Yeah.
First one didn't come close, but the second one went through where his head was, and he.
Yeah. Bobbed and
That was
weaved.
cool. Yeah.
Like Neo with shoes or something.
Yeah. But no, so Vance, obviously we're sort of Team Trump partisans here. We make no bones about that. But I still think, if I'm trying to be objective, I still think Vance won simply because he came across as good. And where I can't say, if I'm honest, that Walz came across terrible, like it was a car crash, like it was a wreck. It wasn't. He stumbled a little bit. I think he took a bit of time to warm up.
Was it just bad ideas?
His first, obviously the policy is dog crap. But no, as a debater, as someone that, you know, it's your job to get up there and talk, is not a complete car crash. But I still think Vance won. I mean, I was watching one commentator. It was Ben Shapiro, actually. I thought I'd quickly see what Ben Shapiro had to say about it. And I actually agreed with his take that it was Vance's job to come across as sort of non-scary, non-aggressive, that the Trump ticket isn't this dangerous thing.
Right.
And that he's not a weirdo. And if that's the primary objective, I felt like he absolutely did it. Like I say, he came across as personable. Yeah. As nice, even.
I think he came
reasonable.
Very, he was in control of the situation.
Yeah, right, yeah.
He was very stable. He didn't allow
calm,
people
cool,
to,
and collected.
Yeah, he didn't allow people to get under his skin, and I think he was also very unifying. He addressed Americans. He came off as humble, as someone who is, as you say, personable. He was likable, compassionate, but also he could speak and he could articulate. He could articulate thoughts, and you can definitely see that he adds something to Trump.
He's pretty lucid and fluid.
Yeah. I think there was 2 things that I saw. I didn't watch the entire thing. I only saw a couple of clips. One was his take on the opposition, Walz and Harris, wanting to criminalize freedom of speech and misinformation, and he used that and as the example. And then I think Walz said something to do with like shouting fire in a crowded theatre as you can't do that. And it was kind of like, that's such a weak like position to take. And it's so obvious that they want to criminalize misinformation expression. And I think the other one that was really fascinating, I think he used the term like whack-a-mole about policy.
Yes, he was really good at reminding
people.
Kamala Harris,
so important.
VP for the last 4 years.
That's what I like when I watch debates with politicians, and of course people who are looking to lead or be the next VP or whatever, any country. I like it when they're calm for a start. It's not all shouty. Yes, Trump can be very, very funny and, you know, ad hominem sometimes when it's necessary, and it's entertaining. But I like what you mentioned about the relatable stuff, but also reminding people of policy and what the opposition has done, and to sort of find solutions, because that's what people want, right? Solutions. We're kind of sick of the talking. I think I've said many a times when I've come here about conferences and stuff like that, I understand it's a morale boost, but people want to see action. What is it you're proposing? What is your solution? And from what I saw, I think he offered quite a few.
Right, yeah, so the actual substance of what they talked about, the thing you mentioned there about where they talked about censorship or the state of democracy, that was right at the end. That was like the last thing, but let's talk about that now, because if there was anything that was actually, for me anyway, genuinely interesting, it was probably that, because they can talk about housing policy and things for a while, and it's dull. It's important, but it's kind of dull. But yeah, right at the end they talked about democracy, and of course Governor Walz was talked all about Trump's assault on democracy with January 6th.
That's it.
And and the mass trespass event that took place at the Capitol. And so that's his angle, that democracy is under attack because of that, because Trump shouted fire in a crowded theatre, effectively, politically, in some sense, in some ways, and that lots of police officers were wounded that day. Okay, and then but Vance shoots back with, well, one, that's nonsense. Trump did just hand over power, didn't he? Though.
Yeah.
And also, the real attack on democracy is your guy's censorship. In fact, one quote I had, the only actual quote I bothered picking out, was he said of Kamala, specifically of Kamala, that she was engaged in, quote, censorship on an industrial scale. Brilliant. Yeah, I suppose he was referencing sort of the Zuckerberg stuff. But there's more than one thing he could probably have pointed to. But the classic thing of that you accuse your enemies of doing exactly what you're doing. Yeah, if anyone's destroying freedom of speech and therefore the nature of democracy itself in America, it's coming from the left.
And their constitution.
Obviously,
well.
Yes, and you see the notion of the argument. So they're saying that, okay, if you're not a free speech absolutist, therefore you have to be absolutely against free speech. That was the implication, which is actually proving what J.D. Vance is talking about.
Yeah. It's mad.
Yeah, because if he's saying you are a problem for free speech, and the answer is, well, there's one case where most people agree that free speech isn't a good thing. Yeah, okay. I mean, what about all the other cases?
Yeah,
where it's a good thing?
Well, I'm personally a free speech advocate. Obviously, anyone in their right mind would be.
Yeah.
You know, a free speech sort of ultra, but there's limits. In any civilized society, you do need sort of libel laws, for example.
Yeah.
You can't just go around accusing anyone of being a rapist, say, and expect to get away with that. So there is a limit on complete and absolute, truly absolute freedom of speech. But yeah, that's no argument to say that, well, then we should be able to censor whatever we want to censor. It's just a non sequitur. It doesn't make any sense.
It seems to me that every other year, the Democrats are addressing the lowest common denominator year after year. That's what I wanted to say. Now, one thing, Samson, I sent you something. Could we load it, please? It's about the debate. I think that I have a different opinion. I want to see what you think.
Okay.
I'm not hijacking the segment.
That's
please
fine.
Tell me, but
Go ahead.
please tell me if I wanted to point at this face that Tim Walz was constantly doing, and I want to say that if we take the content of what was said apart and we just look at the performance, it seemed to me that it was a brilliant victory of J.D. Vance, and I think that's objective because Tim Walz came across as completely nervous. He was constantly doing this face. He was constantly looking at him as horrified.
It was a bit rabbit in the headlights on his face a fair bit. Quite a bit, actually, Yeah, no, that's
quite a lot.
No, it's a fair point. Yeah, it wasn't like literally sweat running down his face. But that face, he was doing that face a fair bit. Yeah.
There's so many memes going around now as well, which is so funny.
But on the other things to mention, what they talked about the Middle East. They both agreed, obviously, sort of, maybe not obviously, but they both agreed unconditional support for Israel, condemning Iran. What else did they talk about? They talked about hurricanes and climate and climate change. Yeah, obviously there was a bit of a difference between them on whether climate change is real or not. But in nearly everything they talked about the economy, they talked about abortion and guns and housing and affordability and energy and healthcare and childcare and all that sort of thing. And on policy, you can usually imagine exactly what it is. You know, like the Dem is sort of pro baby murder, and Vance wasn't, right? So you can imagine what it is. You know, the old Walz says there's nothing wrong with the economy, and Bidenomics, Kamala onomics is fine, and Vance saying no, it isn't. You've ruined the economy. Saying there's no real problem on the border, and Vance saying there is, and you get it. The one thing that I did, the one real sort of moment I thought that was sort of a gotcha was for Walz, where apparently there was one little section where they sort of asked them to defend themselves personally, or things that they've said on Twitter, or things in their personal lives that they is like a bit of a see if we can do a gotcha moment. So for Vance, they said, do you remember that time you said, I can't remember the exact words, but it was quite critical of Trump in 2016, was Vance. Don't know if you remember that.
There was a case, yeah.
He said he was a bad man. I can't remember exactly what he said. But he obviously walked that back not long after, and obviously him and Trump have come to terms with it. So they tried to do that with him. They tried to do that with Vance, and Vance defended himself perfectly, more or less. But the Walz one was quite bad. Walz had been to China,
that's
I think, a bunch of times earlier in his life, like in the 1980s sort of thing. Well, it must have been the 80s. Was involved in some sort of program where they take people over there, students, and I don't know what exactly, but it was something like that. And apparently he'd claimed that he was in Tiananmen Square.
Oh, yes.
When the Chinese were rolling tanks over dissident students and stuff. Do you remember? Well, when was that? It was the early 80s, wasn't it? Tiananmen Square. I should know the exact date. Or was it mid-80s?
Yeah, something like that.
Early to mid-80s sometime. Anyway, apparently he'd claimed he was there. And he simply wasn't. Simply wasn't. It's like when Hillary claimed she came under fire when she visited Yugoslavia one time. It just didn't happen. 1989, Tiananmen Square, right, yeah, sorry. Late 80s there. And so when they grilled him on it, he just sort of prevaricated and just was like, and then it was like, they let him speak for a minute, and then they said, yeah, but were you there or not, though?
Yeah.
And he said, I misspoke. I misspoke. What more can I say?
My spirit was there.
So it's like...
I was there in spirit.
But so you totally lied about that.
The thing is, it's funny because he says, "Oh, I misspoke," but then didn't later on in the debate he said something like, "I'm friends with school shooters" or something insane.
I didn't catch that bit.
Did you not catch that?
Because I was listening.
If I got that wrong, I'm so sorry.
No. If I was listening to it on times 2 speed, and a couple of times I sort of zoned out because it was so boring. But I didn't actually catch that bit. But maybe there was a whole bit about guns and school shootings and stuff.
Yeah,
there was a whole
bit.
He was
friends with. I don't know. Something around that.
I have seen a couple of memes where people have sort of photoshopped him into the Columbine, an image of Columbine. So I think he must have said something like that. Yeah, he became friends with the school shooter.
Yeah,
odd, weird. Maybe he misspoke.
That's a knowledge.
Are we able to listen?
It's one of those things that you listen to and say that can't be true.
Yeah. What did he actually say? Play it.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but it only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time.
School shooters.
That's a doozy.
I guess that's what he must have meant.
Yeah, that's a doozy.
I became friends with the victims of school shootings, the parents of, at least. That must have been what he meant there. Yeah. Anyway, because the thing is, right, we all speak for a living.
Yeah.
I've done hundreds, maybe a few thousand hours of content now in my time. And misspeaking is a thing.
Yeah, of course.
Right, it's totally a thing.
Because your brain is moving at such a vast pace and you want to get it all out.
And quite often you're thinking ahead of what your mouth is actually saying.
Yes.
So, like, for example, a number of times...
Sometimes you think of hostages and you speak of sausages.
It does happen. If you speak for long enough. If you speak for long enough. Right, but that's different.
You use an auto cue.
But what my point was going to be is that that's different to just lying that you were in Tiananmen Square.
Yeah,
that's not misspeaking. That's not misspeaking. Like, the number of times I've gone to say Queen Elizabeth and I've just said Victoria.
Yeah.
Or the other way round.
Yeah.
And you don't even hear it yourself. Because if I hear myself misspeaking, I'll correct myself in real time immediately.
Yeah, you can't misspeak if you claim you're at a particular location and you say it and then go, hang on a minute, no, sorry, that was wrong. I wasn't there, I was actually here. Yeah. Like, you don't just carry that on.
Yeah.
It's weird. And then never mention about it again. Like
getting names wrong. Like, I did some content about Cicero a few weeks back, and Cato, and I was talking about Cicero and Cato loads, and like within the space of an hour, like 4 times, I said Cicero when I meant to say Cato. Like 4 times, it happens. Right?
It happens,
and you, as I say, often you don't even hear it yourself because your brain's 2 steps ahead already. So that's misspeaking.
Yeah, and it's not like Biden, where it's like that's just a medical condition.
Yeah, when you don't even really, it's just depression.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
But I mean, a lot of these debates, they just end up with a question, do you trust this person? And if we just look at any random Tim Walz face, of those, just surprised faces he does every time.
He's a stolen valor guy.
Something is weird.
Our producers just brought up a web page that's a list of Tim Walz liars, apparently.
Interesting.
Well, so anyway.
Yeah, I wanted to say that he doesn't exude trust. He looks like a person who is never in control of the situation.
Yeah, a bit. Certainly way more than Vance, put it that way. Definitely way more than Vance.
Not a leader.
Vance does seem like a competent pair of hands, right? A safe pair of hands. But yeah, like, because little white lies to prevent someone feeling uncomfortable, that's one thing. Like, don't you think my baby's cute? And they're not. And you say, yeah, of course they are. Right, that sort of lie, okay, right.
That's a lie. You didn't misspoke.
Is this creme brulee I spent ages making? Did you enjoy it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Oh, sorry, I meant to say.
That's those sorts of lies. Okay, that's one thing. But to just make up that you came under fire when you didn't, or you was in Tiananmen Square in 1989 when you weren't. For me, anyway, that's sort of inexcusable. It's sort of a proper sort of black mark on your character.
Yeah. Sorry, I just saw there was one. What was that? If you go down, I think it was number 7 or something. White guy tacos. What was that? What was that? Yeah, what is this? I've never seen this before. Walz appeared to have even misled the American people about his, is it palate? Palate? In an online video, he apparently stated that black pepper is the spiciest food he eats, although Walz has a taste for spicy food. In the video, Walz gestures towards a table and tells Kamala Harris, I have white guy tacos. What?
Oh, yeah, you're not spicy, I guess that's what he means. I like non-spicy tacos, I mean.
Okay. I don't know if that's... I don't know. Anyway. I don't know if that's anything to do with lie. I don't...
So anyway, my takeaway from this is that it's probably not worth anyone watching. Although these guys are... One of them is going to be one heartbeat away from being the leader of the free world, right?
Got to be able to speak.
Because the thing about being a vice president, famously, the cliche is that it's a nothing office. It's really boring. You want sort of a non-entity person like Dan Quayle to do it, or Al Gore, and yeah, you're one heartbeat away from the big chair, but you'll probably never get there, and it's all a bit of a nothing, right? But there is quite a lot of examples in history of VPs becoming the president for whatever reason. I mean, the 3 or 4 presidents have been assassinated or died whilst in office, so it's not that crazy. And obviously, plenty of people want Trump dead, so Vance could be the big man one day.
Never know.
So, I mean, it is the cliche that it doesn't matter. But it actually does, right? It still does really matter. I think it does. And on all of that, despite being, we're much more pro-Trump than we are pro-Harris, but I feel like Vance sort of easily won it.
Yep.
He came across well, I think. If I can even come close to being objective about it, seemed to me he came across well, and Governor Walz seemed, he wasn't too bad, but he did lie. He had lied, and he was a bit of a rabbit in the headlights. And obviously the policies are insane.
Hope you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, and if you want to see what else we're putting out, you can follow our series Lads Hour, where we have a lot of fun behind the paywall. Here we're playing GeoGuessr, and if you want to follow everything else that we put out, follow us on Twitter. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.